She was never meant to sing. They put her name on the list as a joke. But when her voice broke the silence, even the ones who laughed forgot how to breathe. If stories of quiet courage move you, if you've ever needed someone to believe in your voice, stay with us. Like and subscribe so you won't miss the next moment where something small becomes unforgettable. Tom McKinley wasn't supposed to be there that late. The final bell had rung hours ago. Students had scattered like dry leaves in the wind, their laughter echoing down polished hallways. Most teachers were already home, dinners warming in ovens, families gathering around kitchen tables. But Tom stayed. He always did. There was comfort in the quiet after everyone else had gone. The hum of fluorescent lights, the slow creak of the old mop bucket wheels, the scent of lemon wax, dust, and faint traces of cafeteria pizza. No one expected much of the janitor, and Tom liked it that way. He moved through the empty corridors with a slow, practiced rhythm, cleaning, locking doors, turning off forgotten lights. He kept to himself. People at school knew him only in passing. They didn't ask why his left hand had burn scars. They didn't ask why he never spoke about his family. That part of his life had ended 3 winters ago, on an icy stretch of Highway 47. His wife, Elaine, their daughter, Hannah, 1 black ice curve. 2 empty chairs at the table ever since. Tom had stopped playing music after that. He used to repair old guitars in his garage, once dreamed of opening a little repair shop with Hannah. Now the tools were boxed up, the strings unwound. The silence had become a second skin. It was past 7 p.m. when he reached the music wing. The rain had picked up, tapping gently against the high windows like shy fingers. He paused outside the practice room, room 108, noticing the light still glowing beneath the door. Probably a student who lost track of time, he thought. He should have knocked, reminded them to head home. But something made him stop. A voice. Soft. Tentative, like someone whispering secrets to the dark. Not polished, not trained, but aching with something raw and real. The kind of voice that didn't know it was being heard. He stood frozen outside the door, listening. The notes were fragile, almost afraid to exist, but they carried something he hadn't felt in years. Longing, hurt, hope, barely hanging on. Then the singing stopped. Footsteps shuffled. A chair scraped. Tom took 2 steps back as the doorknob turned. The door creaked open. A girl slipped out, eyes on the floor. Her coat was too thin for the weather. Her shoes looked a size too small. She couldn't have been more than 15. She didn't see him. Her shoulders were hunched in that way kids wore when the world taught them early, not to take up space. As she passed, something slipped from her coat pocket. A folded piece of paper. Tom watched her disappear down the hallway, her figure swallowed by fluorescent shadows. He bent down. The paper was damp, the ink smudged, but still legible. Handwritten lyrics. A song. Probably her own. A few lines jumped out at him. If I disappear, will it matter? If I sing, will they laugh before they hear? Be brave, just once. He stood there a long moment, the note trembling in his scarred hand. That used to be Hannah's handwriting. Not literally, of course, but close enough. The loops, the uncertainty, the quiet plea to be seen. Tom folded the note carefully and placed it in his jacket pocket. He didn't know the girl's name, but he knew the look in her eyes. He'd seen it in the mirror for 3 years. That night, after locking up and walking back to his truck in the rain, Tom did something he hadn't done in a long time. He looked up. The clouds hung low, heavy and full of secrets, the kind of sky that made you wonder if the world ever noticed the ones left behind. But he had noticed her. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something neither of them saw coming. Tom didn't sleep much that night. He placed the note carefully on the kitchen table beside the lamp, smoothing the wrinkles with the flat of his palm. He'd read it 3 times already, each time slower. Each word a soft knock on a door he thought had been sealed shut. Be brave. Just once. The kind of sentence you only write when you've spent your whole life being anything but. He left it there, untouched, as he made coffee in the morning. His old percolator sputtered like an exhausted engine, filling the cabin with the rich scent of something steady. He poured 2 cups out of habit. Then, remembering, poured one back into the pot. Hannah had always taken hers with honey. The mug in his hand was chipped. Everything was chipped now. His dishes, his heart, his world. When he got to the school, the halls were still dark. Rain from the night before had left the air damp, the floors faintly sticky beneath his boots. He moved through his routine, emptying, trash bins, wiping lockers, checking that the roof hadn't sprung any new leaks. But the melody from room 108 kept trailing him like a scent. Just before second period, he passed by the main hallway. A small knot of students were gathered by the trophy case, whispering too loudly. "That's the girl from room 2B, one boy said. "You know, the one who eats alone. Did you see her face yesterday? Like a deer in headlights." "They really signed her up for the fall concert? Seriously?" Tom slowed down. He didn't like eavesdropping, but he didn't like cruelty either, and high school had a way of feeding on the fragile. "She's gonna humiliate herself," a girl said. "Like, why would you even try if you're just gonna choke?" Laughter, quick, dismissive, the kind that cuts deeper than yelling ever could. He moved on before they noticed him. Later that day, while emptying the trash in the back of the music room, he saw her again. Lily. She was seated at the upright piano, not playing. Just tracing the keys with her fingertips like she was remembering something lost, or waiting for something that wouldn't come. He thought about walking in, saying something, maybe just anything. But he didn't. Instead, he left a small folded napkin beside the piano bench with a note inside. Just one sentence. "Real music doesn't come from confidence, it comes from truth." He didn't sign it. The next day he found the napkin in the trash, but folded around it was a smaller note torn from the edge of a notebook page. Just 3 words. "Truth isn't safe." That night it rained again. He pulled out the old micro-cassette recorder from a box in the attic. Hannah used to use it, to practice speeches. The plastic was yellowing, the buttons sticky, but it still worked. He clicked it on and listened to an old recording. Hannah's voice. 8 years old, laughing through a half-finished rendition of "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." He let it play twice. Then he opened a drawer, found a soft cloth, and began cleaning it. Slowly, like the past could be polished back into usefulness. The next morning, the school was buzzing. Names for the fall concert had been posted outside the choir room. Volunteer slots for solos, group acts, accompanists. Tom wasn't one to linger around such things, but he passed by anyway. There, scribbled in tiny handwriting beneath a crossed-out name, was Lily H. Solo. He didn't smile. Not quite. But something settled in his chest that hadn't been there in a long time. Hope, of course, not everyone saw it that way. Later that afternoon, he was sweeping behind the auditorium when he overheard 2 girls in cheer jackets. They only put her in because nobody else signed up, or because they want the audience to laugh at her. You know, Mr. Sanders is that kind of teacher. Tom clenched the handle of the broom. Kids don't just become cruel, he thought. They learn it somewhere. He looked down at his hands. The old burn scars flared a little when he was angry, as if the past never really healed, just hardened. By the end of the week, Lily had stopped practicing in the music room. She'd started coming earlier, before school started, sitting outside the side door, sometimes just holding her notebook, close, unmoving. Tom didn't say anything. But every morning, he left the door unlocked early and placed a thermos of tea on the top of the piano. He never waited around to see if she drank it, but the thermos always came back empty. Tom started, staying later. Not because he had to. The halls were mostly clean, the supplies restocked, the sinks gleamed. But he found himself lingering by the back stairwell that led to the music wing, mop set aside, watching the amber light slant through the narrow windows as dusk softened, the building. Sometimes she was already there when he arrived. Lily didn't see him, Or if she did, she didn't let on. She'd come in quiet, head down, always with the same spiral notebook tucked against her chest like a shield. She walked like someone expecting to be stopped, corrected, sent away. But Tom never said a word. He'd unlock room 108 early, flick the light switch, and slip out again. By the time he returned an hour later, there'd be traces left behind. A chair pulled close to the piano, a pencil resting on a page of lyrics. The soft, lingering scent of mint tea. She had started to hum, barely audible at first, notes drawn out like threads, uncertain but real. They floated through the open door when she thought she was alone. Tom didn't interrupt. He remembered what it was like to be watched too closely while grieving, how even kindness could feel like pressure. He swept the hallway instead, slowly, letting her voice wash over the floor tiles like a blessing no one else would hear. But something about her tone began to change. It wasn't louder, just less afraid. One Wednesday evening, as the sky outside turned the color of old denim, Tom found her still inside after hours, fingers hovering over the keys. She froze when she saw him in the doorway. Sorry, she said quickly. I was just leaving. No need, he said, his voice low and steady. Just making my rounds. She hesitated, one hand still on middle C. I'll be quiet. You already were. She blinked, unsure how to take that. He nodded toward the notebook on the piano. That yours? Lily looked at it, then back at him, then gave the faintest nod. Tom stepped into the room slowly, walking like he was in a church. He stopped a few feet from the piano bench and let his eyes rest on the worn black and white keys. My daughter used to sit here, he said softly. Lily looked down. She liked to hum too. Couldn't sing in tune to save her life, but she hummed like she meant it. The room went still. What happened to her? Lily asked, then quickly added, You don't have to say. Tom looked at the wall. The white paint was cracked where the old bass clef mural had been scrubbed off years ago. Car accident, he said. 3 winters ago. I'm sorry, Lily whispered. He nodded once. Me too. They stood there in the hush. The air, between them not heavy, but reverent, like the pause before a song begins. I like your words, he said after a moment, gesturing toward the notebook. Lily's hand moved instinctively to cover it. They're not good, just stuff. All music starts with stuff, Tom said. Even the old songs, even the hymns. Somebody sat down one day and tried to make sense of how they felt. Lily didn't speak, but she didn't move away either. Tom reached into his jacket and pulled something from the inner pocket. A small square object wrapped in a handkerchief. He unwrapped it and placed it gently on the piano bench beside her. A battered microcassette recorder. It's old, he said, but it still works. If you want to hear yourself, not just how it sounds, but how it feels. Lily stared at it. My daughter used it once. Thought it was magic. Thought if she recorded herself enough times one day it'd sound perfect. Did it? She asked. Tom gave a soft smile. It didn't have to. She didn't touch the recorder, but she didn't reject it either. As he turned to leave, she said, Mr. McKinley? He paused. Do people ever stop being scared? Tom stood in the doorway, the hall behind him already dark. No, he said, but sometimes you sing anyway. The letter was never meant to be found. Tom spotted it the way he noticed most things, quietly, while no one else was looking. It was a Thursday afternoon, gray and cold enough to suggest snow was near. The school hallways buzzed with the restless energy of November. The kind of day kids wore thin jackets against better judgment, and the air carried the smell of wet leaves and locker room deodorant. He was emptying the trash in the corner of the music room when he saw the envelope, crumpled, half hidden beneath a discarded fast food bag in the can beside the piano. Most days he wouldn't have looked twice. But something about the way it was folded stopped him. He unfolded it gently, hands instinctively cautious. The paper was soft from having been handled too many times. The ink had bled in some places, like the writer had written in the rain. Or with tears. There was no greeting, just sentences that landed like dropped stones. I know you didn't want me. I know I ruined your church friends and your Sunday mornings. You said I was just like her. But I'm not her. I never got to leave. I just stayed invisible. Tom stopped reading. He set the letter down on the edge of the desk, fingers tracing the curl of the last line. There was no name, but he didn't need one. He knew the voice behind the ink. It had been rising, trembling, stretching its wings in room 108 after hours. It was Lily's. He felt it like a heartbeat out of rhythm, slow, aching, impossible to ignore. He should have left it, should have slipped it back in the trash. But instead, he folded it carefully and slid it into his pocket. That night, he sat in his armchair beside the fire, the same chair he hadn't moved since Elaine passed. The letter rested on his knee. Outside, the wind rattled the eaves like fingers on a locked door. His chest ached in a way that wasn't physical, because it wasn't just Lily's story that haunted him, it was his own. He remembered the night Hannah had come home crying after choir auditions, how she'd locked herself in her room, said nothing through dinner, left her voice somewhere behind the slammed door. Tom hadn't gone in. He'd waited, and the next day, everything had been fine. Until it wasn't. Until she was gone. Until there were no more doors to knock on, no more chances to ask, "Are you okay?" He picked up the recorder from the table. The cassette still inside had Hannah's name scrawled across the label in purple marker smudged at the corners. He clicked it on. A voice filled the room. High, unsure, flat in places, but real. "This is take 4. Or 5. I don't know. Hi, Dad. I'm trying again. Don't laugh if I mess up." Tom closed his eyes. It was the closest he'd been to her in years. The next day, he didn't see Lily until dusk. She was already seated at the piano, notebook open, pencil tapping the edge of the page in a nervous rhythm. He didn't want to startle her, so he cleared his throat from the doorway. She jumped anyway. "Oh, Mr. McKinley, I thought everyone left already." "I tend to hang around," he said gently, stepping into the room. "Hard to leave quiet places behind." She gave a tight, polite nod. The kind kids learn when they're used to ending conversations before they start. He sat in the old wooden chair by the chalkboard, the one no one used anymore. "I found something," he said, watching her closely. "In the trash yesterday." Her eyes flicked up, then down. "I wasn't looking for it," he added. "It found me." A long pause. Then Lily whispered, "You read it?" "I did." Silence. She closed the notebook, not abruptly, but with finality. "I didn't mean for anyone to see it," she said. "It was just words. I didn't even finish it." "You finished more than you think." She didn't answer. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You know, I used to think grief was like a fire. Something that burned up everything until all that was left was ash." She looked at him, confused but listening. "But it's not," he said. "It's more like a fog. You learn to live inside it, to walk through your days half blind, reaching out, hoping something solid finds you before you fall." Lily stared at her hands. Tom continued. "That letter? That was solid. It found me." Her voice broke. "It wasn't brave." "No," he agreed. "It was braver than that. It was honest." She swallowed hard. "Sometimes," Tom said softly, "the things we can't say out loud, those are the ones that need to be heard most." Lily sat very still. Then slowly she opened the notebook again. Not to the lyrics, to a blank page. She didn't write anything yet, but she left it open. The fall concert was 2 weeks away. It hung over the school like a silent storm cloud. Teachers, taping up flyers, students rehearsing in haphazard clusters, harmonies leaking through stairwells and locker-lined halls. Lily stopped using the music room during school hours. She came early, sometimes earlier than Tom, waiting on the bench outside the locked door with her notebook folded tight, and her fingers curled into sleeves too long for her hands. Tom started unlocking the room 15 minutes earlier. Left the door cracked. Left a thermos of mint tea on the piano and once a folded square of paper with just 3 words. Still here. Always. She never replied. But the tea kept disappearing, and slowly the silence changed. She began to hum with the lights, still on. She sang half verses, whispered through choruses. She tripped over melodies but tried again. The fear didn't vanish, but it started learning how to sit beside her, not on top of her. Tom watched from a distance. He stayed outside in the hallway now, broom idle, listening through the cracked door. Not to judge, not to coach, just to bear witness. To give her the one thing he had never given Hannah in time: presence. One morning, as frost curled along the school windows and the old boiler clanked like distant thunder, he brought her something different. An old microphone. Not a fancy one, no Bluetooth, just a worn silver mic with a long black cable fraying at the edges, the kind used for karaoke or church basement bands. He found it in his garage beside a half-finished guitar Hannah never got to paint. He placed it on the piano, coiled the cord neatly, and left. The next day she was already singing when he approached. Not humming, singing. It was rough. It cracked in the higher notes. But it was music. And then, halfway through the chorus, her voice faltered, went quiet. He heard the mic drop gently on the keys. He pushed the door open. Slow. She was staring, down at the microphone like it had betrayed her. "They're gonna laugh at me," she said without looking up. Tom stepped inside. "Who?" "Everyone." Her voice was flat, tired. "They think I'm a joke. Like this whole thing is just something to laugh at." He nodded slowly. "Do you believe them?" She was quiet, then almost too soft to hear. "Sometimes." Tom walked over and picked up the mic. He turned it slowly in his scarred hands, thumb brushing the worn grill. "You know what this is?" he asked. Lily shrugged. "This," he said, "is just a piece of metal, plastic, wires. It can't make you brave. It can't make you ready, but it can carry your voice." She blinked. "Even if it shakes?" "Especially then." She took it from him, gingerly. Her fingers trembled around the handle. Tom sat on the edge of the piano bench beside her, not too close. When Hannah, my daughter, was alive, she used to think there was a perfect moment, a day where everything would line up. Her voice. The audience, her nerves, she waited for it. He paused. It never came. Lily looked at him. "So she gave up?" "No." He smiled faintly. "She sang anyway." The silence that followed was warm. Then Lily whispered, "I'm scared." Tom nodded. "Me too." That Friday, Lily turned in her final confirmation slip for the concert. Solo, confirmed. Song, original composition. Tom only found out because the choir teacher, Mr. Sanders, mentioned it in the break room. "That girl, Lily H. Something about her voice," Sanders said. "It's raw. Like a paper cut you don't notice until you feel the sting." Tom didn't say much, just offered a quiet, But when he returned to room 108 later that afternoon and found Lily writing a new verse, something in his chest settled. She wasn't waiting for permission anymore. She was choosing to be heard. The night before the concert, the school auditorium sat quiet. Rows of folding chairs aligned like soldiers, stage lights dimmed to a soft, amber glow. The air held the weight of anticipation like the breath before a leap. Tom stood in the back, mop in hand, pretending to clean. Lily was on stage with the others for the final run-through. She stood near the edge, microphone clutched tightly, not saying much, just watching the others take their turns. Some cracked jokes, some rolled their eyes. A few whispered, and Tom didn't need to hear the words to know they weren't kind. Lily didn't flinch, but her fingers trembled when she adjusted the mic stand. Tom watched from the shadows. She hadn't seen him yet. He'd promised himself he wouldn't hover, that he'd let her do this alone. But promises were hard when your heart sat outside your body, perched on a stage with two big shoes and two deep scars. When it was finally her turn, she walked forward slowly. No introduction, no smile, just a breath. And then, silence. The mic let out a low, pitiful buzz. She tapped it. Nothing. The lights above her flickered once. Then again. Then out. Complete darkness swallowed the stage. A pause. Someone laughed, too loudly, too deliberately. Then another. A ripple of snickering spread across the auditorium. Tom moved. He didn't remember dropping the mop. Didn't remember the long steps up the side aisle or the way his boots echoed off the linoleum. All he remembered was the look on Lily's face, frozen, eyes wide, mouth parted as if a song had been waiting to escape, but lost its courage mid-flight. Mr. Sanders scrambled to the breaker room backstage. The students milled around, murmuring, half amused, half disoriented. Tom didn't join them. He slipped behind the curtain, flashlight in hand, and opened the access panel behind the soundboard. Wires hung loose. A few had been yanked from their ports. Sabotage. Not careless, not accidental. Someone had wanted her voice silenced. He knelt without a word, hands moving on instinct, calluses brushing wires like familiar tools. His fingers, stiff from cold and age and old burn scars, still knew how to fix what had been broken. Hannah's old mic had shorted out the same way once, backstage at a church recital. He had rewired it then, too, while she'd waited, frightened but trusting, just beyond the curtain. Back then he had made it in time. He would make it in time again. Outside he heard someone say, "Maybe it's a sign. She should just skip." It, another voice, sharper. She wasn't going to be good anyway. And then Lily. Quiet but steady. "I'm still going to sing." Tom closed his eyes, breathed once, then clicked the main breaker back into place. The lights flickered. The mic gave a long hum, then cleared. He stepped out from behind the curtain, dusting off his hands. Lily was already back at center stage. She glanced over, saw him, and something softened in her face. Not relief exactly, but recognition. A silent thank you between two people who never needed to say much aloud. Tom gave a slight nod and returned to the shadows. She stood there again, the lights warm on her skin, the mic live in her hand, and in the breath before she opened her mouth, Tom heard the sound of something breaking, not from her but within himself. A wall maybe, or a door, long sealed, or maybe just the silence that had grown too comfortable inside his chest. She began to sing, and this time no one laughed. There was a moment, after the lights returned and the laughter died, where everything hung suspended. Lily stood in the center of the stage, clutching the microphone as though it might float away. The auditorium had stilled. No whispers, no shuffling. Just breath, held collectively by 100 people waiting to see what she would do next. She looked out, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the stage lights. Faces hidden, smirks forgotten. Even the teachers looked uncertain, unsure if they were watching a performance or a reckoning. Tom watched from the aisle, barely breathing. She lifted the mic, then she set it down. Not dropped. Not in defeat, but with quiet intention. The feedback hummed a moment, then faded, and Lily began to sing. No accompaniment, no microphone, no safety net. Just her. Her voice was soft, at first barely more than a whisper. But it carried. Somehow, it carried. If I disappear, will the sky notice? If I speak, will the world stay quiet? If I sing, even broken, even small, will that be enough? The first verse quivered. Tom felt it in his chest, that tiny ripple of fragility. It wasn't perfect. She cracked on the second note. Her breath caught too early, but she kept going. And by the second chorus, something changed. The tremble didn't leave. but it became part of the song, like wind in the branches, like rain on a window, real, alive, impossible to ignore. There were no instruments, no harmonies, only the echo of her own courage filling the room. Even the cruelest voices stilled. One girl near the front lowered her phone without pressing record. Mr. Sanders, standing backstage, slowly removed his glasses. And Tom could feel Hannah in that moment. Not as memory, not as ache, but as something present. As if she were sitting beside him whispering, "She's doing it, Dad. Just like I wanted to." He gripped the back of a seat, knuckles white, eyes locked on the girl who had once only spoken, in half sentences and mumbled apologies. Now she was singing truths that grown men couldn't say aloud. "I'm not the loudest. I'm not the best. But I am still here, still breathing, still trying, and this is my voice." When the final note faded, silence fell again. But it wasn't empty. It was full. Full of the weight of something sacred, something earned. Then, quietly, almost timidly, someone clapped a single clap, then another. Then the room erupted, not with polite applause, but with something else, something deeper. As if everyone there knew they had witnessed something unrepeatable. Tom didn't clap, he couldn't. His hands wouldn't move. Instead, he stood still, watching Lily bow her head, then raise it again, not proudly, but without shame. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her song wasn't about celebration. It was about survival. Later, when the crowd dispersed and the stage emptied, Tom waited near the exit, hands in his coat pockets. She found him there, notebook hugged to her chest. Like always, he nodded once. "You did it." She looked at him, eyes red but clear. "I was shaking the whole time." "You still stood." Lily hesitated. Then, almost too quietly, she said, "They laughed at first." "I know. But I sang anyway." Tom's voice trembled. "I saw." She reached into her pocket and pulled something out. It was the folded note he had once found in the trash, the one about being invisible. She handed it to him. "Can you throw this away? For real this time?" He took it gently, then tucked it into his coat next to Hannah's old cassette tape. "No," he said. "I think I'll keep it." Lily smiled. Small. Earnest. The kind that stays. And for the first time since Hannah's funeral, Tom felt his chest fill not with pain, but with purpose. Monday morning arrived quiet, the kind of quiet that lingered even after the school doors opened and the bell rang. Something had shifted over the weekend. The air in the halls felt softer, the laughter more cautious. Even the usual clatter of lockers opening and slamming shut seemed to pause now and then, like the building itself was waiting. Room 108 was empty when Tom entered. The old piano sat quietly, a leaf taped to its side, something Lily must have drawn. A crayon outline, orange and brown, with the word "Still Here" scrawled along the stem. Tom smiled. He cleaned around it carefully, not touching the leaf. In the hallway outside the auditorium, students passed slower than usual. They weren't whispering like before. Some stopped to glance at the bulletin board near the choir room, the space usually filled with sign-up sheets and announcements no one read. Today, something new was there. One page, taped at eye level. Lily's handwriting. Not the whole song. Just a verse. They said I'd be a joke, that my voice was too thin. But I sang anyway, because silence was heavier. No title, no signature, just her words. Underneath, someone else had scribbled something in blue pen. That was brave, thank you. Then, in black Sharpie, I thought I was the only one, and by lunchtime 7 more notes appeared. Sticky notes, torn paper edges, candy wrappers with messages scrawled in pen. I write poems in the back of my math book, haven't spoken in class all year. I thought nobody cared if I disappeared. By day's end, it wasn't a bulletin board anymore. It was a wall of voices, a wall of kids saying things they never thought they could say out loud. Tom passed by it after 7th period. He didn't stop, but he felt it, the hum of something quiet turning real. Later that afternoon, he found Lily in the music room. She was packing up, gently placing her notebook into her bag, moving slower than usual. "You saw it?" she asked, not looking up. "I did. I didn't mean for it to grow like that." Tom chuckled softly. "Hope has a habit of spreading." She smiled faintly. "I didn't think anyone would write back." "You didn't have to think it, you just had to go first." She nodded once, the kind of nod that held more weight than any thank you. Then she asked, "Did they ever say anything? After what you fixed?" Tom paused. He'd been wondering when she'd ask. He pulled a folded letter from his back pocket. "Got this today." It was from the district. Formal, polite, regretful. Tom McKinley, as a non-instructional staff member, had acted outside the boundaries of his role by intervening in a student performance setting. While his intent had not caused harm, the breach of protocol required reassignment to a non-student-facing position, pending further review. He handed it to her. She read it slowly, then blinked. "They're punishing you?" Tom shrugged. "They're protecting the process." "But you saved the concert?" "No," he said gently. "You saved it. I just plugged in a few wires." Her eyes glistened. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," he said. "You caused change." She folded the letter back into his hand, then pulled something else from her bag, a single sheet of lined paper ripped along one edge. "I wrote this after the concert," she said. "I didn't know where to put it." Tom read it. "Dear Mr. McKinley, when I sang, I wasn't alone. I know that now. I was borrowing the courage you loaned me, just long enough to find my own. You said your daughter used to sit at this piano. I hope I made her proud too. Thank you for hearing me before anyone else did. Love, Lily." He looked up, but Lily was already walking away, her backpack slung over one shoulder, hands stuffed in her coat pockets. She didn't wait for his reaction. She didn't need to, because some notes aren't written to be answered. Some are just meant to be held. That night, Tom didn't go home right away. He stood in the darkened hallway outside the music room, looking at the wall of voices. Then quietly, he pulled a thumbtack from his coat, unfolded Lily's letter, and pinned it at the center. The auditorium had never looked like this before. By Thursday morning, the wall outside room 108 had stretched into the hallway. Teachers stopped to read it. Students lingered longer between classes, their shoulders brushing but not shoving, eyes fixed on the tapestry of confessions taped to the plaster. It wasn't loud, but it was undeniable, and every note traced back to a single line. Lily's verse, still centered, still there, but I sang anyway, because silence was heavier. Tom stood across from it, mop bucket beside him. He didn't clean, didn't move, just watched. Something bigger than any of them had started to grow, and then the letters began. They came folded into lockers, slid under doors, taped to the front office window, from students, from parents, from teachers who once rolled their eyes at drama. Letters asking the question no one had asked before. Why is Mr. McKinley being moved? Why do we silence the ones who show up when it matters? Mr. Sanders stopped him after lunch, leaning awkwardly against a doorframe. "I sent one too," he said quietly. "The kids, they're not writing poems for me." "I think that says something." Tom nodded, unsure what to say. By the end of the week, over 100 notes had been collected. Lily found him in the hallway that Friday, cheeks pink from cold, notebook hugged to her chest as usual. "They're going to meet next week," she said. "The school board, to review everything." He raised an eyebrow. "Everything? They're not just talking about you. They're talking about the music program, about the wall, about all of it." Tom chuckled. All I did was fix a wire. Lily gave him a look. You fixed more than that. He didn't argue. He couldn't. That weekend, Lily's post, a photo of the wall with the caption, "Everyone deserves to be heard," was shared hundreds of times online. Alumni weighed in, former teachers, kids who had never spoken a word on stage or in class, suddenly finding the courage to post their own verses, their own notes. But Tom didn't see most of it. He didn't have social media. He just noticed the way people looked at him differently in the grocery store, the way a boy he didn't know held the door open and said, "Thanks, Mr. McKinley," like he meant it. He noticed the way Lily walked a little taller through the halls, and the way the piano in room 108 was always warm. On Monday, the school board held a public meeting in the library, folding chairs lined up in neat rows. A microphone no one wanted to be the first to approach until Lily did. Tom watched from the back. She didn't read a speech, she just said one sentence. "I never thought a janitor would be the first person to listen to me." And that was all. That night they voted. The reassignment order was rescinded. Tom could stay. The next morning, room 108 glowed. Not from anything official, but from the kids. They had cleaned it, decorated it, garlands strung across the old window frames, drawings of microphones, leaves cut from construction paper, each one bearing a line from someone's note. In the center of the whiteboard, someone had written in block letters, "The listening room," and beneath it, smaller. For those who were brave enough to sing, even if they shook. Tom stood in the doorway. Lily was at the piano, fingers resting gently on the keys, not playing yet, just present. She looked up. "You're still here," she said. "I told you I don't leave quiet places behind." She smiled, then nodded toward the wall of color and paper and poems. "It's not mine anymore," she said. "It's everyone's." Tom stepped inside, sat on the wooden bench that still creaked on the left side. "You know," he said softly, "I used to think listening wasn't enough, that if I couldn't fix something, it didn't matter. And now?" she asked. He looked around the room, at the lives slowly gathering under its roof, at the silence that now held meaning instead of shame. "Now I think it might be everything." Winter settled over the town like a soft exhale. The first snowfall came late, dusting the school parking lot in a quiet hush that softened even the sharpest edges. Tom arrived early that morning. Too early. He didn't need to be there. Not really. But he liked the silence before the building woke up. The way the floors echoed under his boots. The way his keys sounded like music when they jingled in the door of room 108, the listening room. He smiled at the new sign Lily had made. Handwritten, slightly crooked, taped right under the light switch. Inside, the room felt different now. Warmer. The decorations were still up, faded a little, edges curling from steam heat, but no one dared take them down. The wall of notes had grown. It spilled past the doorway, down the hall. They started calling it the thread. Kids would walk by and touch a line that spoke to them like it was a talisman, a ritual. Lily had stopped coming every day. She didn't need to anymore. She had a group now, friends who waited for her at lunch, a teacher who asked her opinion without flinching. Her voice, still soft, now carried with intention. But some afternoons she still slipped into room 108 after the final bell, just to sit, to hum, to be. And Tom was always nearby. He never called her kid, never called her student. But sometimes when she left her notebook behind on the bench or forgot her thermos, he'd call after her with just one word, "Lily," and she always turned around with a smile that told him she knew she was safe. She'd taken to calling him Mr. McKay. No one else did. He didn't mind. One Thursday, she walked into the music room carrying a small paper bag. Inside was a photograph, worn, creased. A girl about 8 sitting at an upright piano, head tilted back in a laugh mid-note. A man behind her with a crooked smile and a hand resting on her shoulder. "This is Hannah, right?" Lily asked, voice quiet. Tom nodded, eyes locked on the image. "Yeah." She looks like she knew she was loved. She was. Lily sat down beside him on the bench, not too close, just enough. "I was thinking," she said. "Your daughter sang, and I sang, and both of us needed you to hear us." Tom looked at her, something in his throat tightening. She continued, "Maybe being a dad isn't about fixing things, or knowing everything. Maybe it's just staying in the room." He couldn't speak, didn't need to. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small square envelope. Inside was a photograph, the one someone had taken at the concert, the moment just after Lily had finished her song. She was looking into the lights, standing still, shoulders back, no smile, just peace. Tom had written something on the back. She found her voice. "I found my way back." Lily turned it over and smiled. That night, just before he left, Tom added something to the wall. It wasn't a poem or a verse, just a line of his own, written in his small, neat handwriting. "To the girl who sang without music, thank you for helping me hear again." The next day, someone drew a tree beneath the message, a small hand-drawn sapling reaching upward. Later that week, the art teacher laminated it. No one took it down. Not even when winter turned to spring. Not even when Lily graduated. She came back, once the following year. Taller, more confident. She wore a cardigan with patches on the elbows and carried a canvas bag full of books. Tom was still there, same keys, same broom, same warm smile when she walked through the door. She handed him a wrapped box and said, "I'm for the room." Inside was a new microphone. Engraved at the base were 4 words, "Sing, even if you shake." He placed it in the cabinet next to the old one, which still worked, scars and all. Now and then, he would take both out, let new students choose which to use. Some went for the sleek silver, others for the battered one with its worn cable and quiet history. But they all sang. And that was the point. Some voices are too quiet to be heard at first, but once someone listens, they echo forever. If this story stayed with you, even just a little odd, leave a like and consider subscribing. Here we believe in second chances, soft beginnings, and endings that feel like home.